Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about, no two ways about it, a stunning violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution by Donald Trump, proposing to take a jet called a Palace in the Sky from Qatar as a gift, valued variously at $400 million, $625 million. When we retool it, et cetera, it'll be about $1 billion to use to replace Air Force One during his presidency, and thereafter to be donated to the presidential foundation that will be created as it is for all prior presidents. All right. So there are certain kinds of arguments going back and forth about whether it's a good or bad idea. And very notably, you have Republicans this morning, Senator Cruz, saying, I'm not sure this is a good idea to be accepting this huge present from Qatar, which is right next to Saudi Arabia. Who knows what'll be in the plane? But even apart from that, to be in debt in that way to this kind of country, to parts of the world that support terrorism and the like, seems like it's worrisome. But let's just put all that aside for starters and just go to the law, which is so clear. So right there in the Constitution, it says no person, Trump counts as a person, holding any office, president counts as that, shall, without the consent of the Congress, clear as day, Congress has to decide on this, accept any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Certainly king, prince, or foreign state, check. The only argument that they seem to have advanced and will be advancing if there's litigation, which is a big question, I will return to that, is, well, because this is really going to the government, not to Trump personally, it doesn't count. That's wrong two ways. First, on the facts, it is going to Trump after. The foundation has to be, is not a public institution supported by public dollars. It's a private institution supported by private dollars. So that's straightforward to Trump. And of course, the palace in the sky and all of that is just part of the magnitude of the maximum leader. And then beyond that, the Trump administration itself already has taken the position with other people, for example, Senator Bob Menendez, that this kind of thing, whether or not you try to characterize it as, well, it's really for the government, still counts as a perk or a gift under the Emoluments Clause. So that argument, though they'll trot it out, doesn't hunt. Maybe that's what they have in mind, because we hear there is no less than the august authority of, wait for it, AG Pam Bondi, who, besides herself having made six figures as a lobbyist for Qatar, has signed a memo that nobody has seen yet that I'm here to wager has unpersuasive and threadbare legal authority saying, oh no, this is all fine. This is not fine. You know, it's breathtaking. I mean, so in the first term, court after court found Emoluments Clause violations. There are issues of standing, which I'll get to, issues of remedy, but court after court. And this was both domestic and international, with all the sort of payments kind of forced to Trump International and hotels and the like. That's just chump change here next to a $400 million or $600 million palace in the sky. So it's breathtaking. Much, much less presence over time were complied with in the Constitution. A beautiful sort of ornamental elephant that Lincoln wanted. He asked the Congress. They said, no, I don't think so. Obama, wins the Nobel Peace Prize, but he just refused to accept the $1 million. That's complying with the Emoluments Clause, of course, because you would have to run it by Congress. Okay, so, you know, it will be, I think, interesting, but laughable to see what legal justification, they try to say that there's not a violation of the Emoluments Clause here. Okay. In general, when you talk about the Emoluments Clause, and we found this out in the first term, there are issues of standing. So who can sue to actually have a court determine it's a violation of the Emoluments Clause? The biggest suit in Trump 1.0 were by two state attorneys general who made an argument that they had standing because it ultimately, all the revenue to the Trump hotels led to loss in their own. But it's hard to state a standing argument. The cases themselves were all eventually dismissed as moot because they hadn't been by the Supreme Court because they hadn't been finalized at the time of Trump presidency. But there is a puzzle as to who can sue. But that, to me, that puzzle just reinforces Congress's preeminent role here. There's a reason. It's happened a couple times. It's not that often in the Constitution. One of them, interestingly, is suspension of habeas corpus, where professor for the regime, Stephen Miller, is in the process of suggesting they may try to suspend habeas corpus without the decision of the Congress. That's, again, flagrantly unconstitutional. And here as well, the framers didn't want these kinds of big, they were really concerned about it because this is what kings do. You know, they trade each other presents and personal presents, and that's how they feather each other's nests, and that's the way things go, not in the colonies, not in the new United States of America. And they specifically, the framers, didn't want this to be national debates and public editorials. Should we keep the $400 million plane from Qatar or shouldn't we? That's why it's with Congress. It's extremely straightforward and extremely simple what Trump should be doing. And of course, it's what he's not doing here and potentially in suspension. You serve it up to the Congress. Now, unfortunately, this has come up in the first term as well, and you've had no appetite in the Congress to try to receive it, debate it, and the like. If they receive it and people want to say our maximum leader, Donald Trump, should have this plane, then it would be with the approval of the Congress, and they would have the sort of political response. By the way, what does Trump say? He says two things. First, you'd have to be a sucker not to take this plane. It's just a really good quote. It'd be for losers. That's one. And then the other, he analogizes to Sam Sneed, a golfer of many years ago, who said, if they give you a putt, you take it, meaning you've got a couple feet. And the opponent graciously says, you can have that one, Sam. Great, you take it. But of course, what does that show? It's a gift. You're not entitled to it. Your opponent gives it to you. So how do you get a gift for the government or for some personal use in the United States? Congress approves it because it's a gift or a perk, however you want to say it. Certainly, triggers the Emoluments Clause. And that means so straightforwardly, it triggers congressional approval. Just let me read again. No person holding any office, Trump, shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept any present, perk, etc. So it is very straightforward. Now, even apart from that, you're having some heartburn on both sides. People saying maybe there are security concerns. I don't know if this is a good idea. Qatar itself is backing away, saying, presenting the deal as tentative, suggesting that both the United States and Qatar are considering the legality. Look, there's just a basic common sense point. It would be for Congress to debate whether it should be leapfrogged, but there's a basic point. Qatar wants to do this. It's worth it to Qatar to give us a $400 million or $600 million plane. So the screaming question is, what are they getting out of it and why do they want to do it? And it's not as if you have to identify it to know that it is a constitutional violation. You just, there's a reason for it, and that it is, even apart from the absolutely clear constitutional violation, it's just a problem. It's a national security problem. It's an international relations problem. It's a Middle East policy problem. It's a anti-terrorism problem, the same way our kind of half embrace of Saudi Arabia is. Now, there are reasons we do that half embrace. You can agree with them or disagree with them, but at least there's a prescribed way to come to that decision for the United States. Here, there's a prescribed way too, prescribed by the Constitution and always honored, with the possible exception of Trump 1.0. You serve it up to Congress. Congress is right now out of session. They come back, I think, tomorrow. Jamie Raskin, among others, has in mind some kind of legislative solution that will say, we're going to decide on this. Here's how much time we'll take, et cetera, actually to effectuate Congress's role. Remember, he's got a razor-thin margin there, and there are genuine concerns, including the American people, the press, everybody. I mean, step back. Stinks to high heaven. Yes, we're getting a $600 million plane from Qatar. Something is really nasty about this, whether or not you're a constitutional scholar or know how to spell emoluments. There's a violation, and, there's going to be political pushback. And I'll just end, as I began, with the legal pushback. Quite apart from that, there's a standing question that shouldn't, the president is duty-bound, though he doesn't seem to remember, to effectuate the law and to, carry it out. That is his core responsibility out of Article 2. This is the law. You may not take this. But without a solid case with solid standing, how it's enforced by the courts may be a puzzle, may not even happen, but it's clear that it's supposed to fall to Congress. It's just that this Congress couldn't be more supine, but they are showing some signs of life. And here, as I say, even pretty conservative members are saying, whoa, this is pretty out there. Sure doesn't sound like the greatest idea. So we'll see what happens in the political sphere. Legally, any battle, as I say, will be strong on the merits, but the question will be standing. But there will be ones that will be lodged and fought for sure. And this is an issue that's not going away. And there's plenty more to sort of chew over and fight about before the palace in the sky arrives on the runway to be the new Air Force One. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.